Hey guys, how y'all doing? I'm gonna do a follow-up video on Trump. I found some stuff here and that I didn't know about, and it looks to me like he's not part of the act that we're seeing after seeing what I saw. Um, Now I saw a thing that Glenn Beck did. You might not like his religion, but he shoots straight on the news and things going on, and he's been calling what we're seeing right now for years. He's been calling this. He's seen it coming. He's been right, just every step of the way, just about on it. Um, and he made the comment that he don't think there's anyone in American history that's in politics or anything in public view that has gone through what Trump has and not been charged with something. Not any kind of real solid evidence. And, we know about the impeachments. We know about the Russia stuff. And it goes on. But like he pointed out, just think, okay, here you go. Here's the lawsuits that he's dealing with. In New York, Jean Carroll, the defamation and federal tort claims. Carroll suing Trump for defamation after he publicly accused her of fabricating rape allegations against him. Well, if he didn't, then I would say something if I was him too. Summer Zervos, a former contestant for The Apprentice, has filed a civil suit for defamation after he claimed her allegations of his inappropriate sexual contact were lies. Designed to help the Clinton campaign. That's back when that was going on. And marry Trump after all these years. Suing Trump. Fraud litigation. Suing Donald Trump for defrauding her out of millions of dollars in inheritance. Wow. Like Glenn Beck said, how long has that been going on, Mary? Panama hotel fraud and tax litigation. He has the John Doe versus the Trump Corporation class action lawsuit. A group of anonymous plaintiffs have filed against the Trump family and their businesses. Alleged that the Trumps used their brand to scam investors into paying for worthless business opportunities. You got the D.C. civil suit over misuse of 2017 inauguration funds. Where are all these suits against past presidents, like Obama with his all the columns like in Rome and all this stuff. And you have the Representative Karen Bass incitement suit for January 6th. This is 10 members of the House represented by the NAACP that are suing Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and 2 white right-wing militia groups for conspiring to forcibly prevent Congress from counting the Electoral College votes on January 6th. Eric Swalwell, the one with the connection with the Chinese mistress. He's suing Trump for incitement. Let's see, and Rudy Giuliani. They're all being sued for the same thing. He's incited this. The Capitol Police, two Capitol Police officers, both on duty January 6th, sued Trump for his injuries that were sustained. Then you have 10 Capitol Police suits from January 6th. A second group of Capitol Police officers filing suit against Donald Trump, the Proud Boys, and Oath Keepers. Then you have a third Capitol Police suit over the January 6th. This is the third suit. One Capitol Police officer alleging physical and emotional injuries. And you have the Metropolitan Police suit. So he's got all these individual cops, and then the union decided that they're going to sue him too. You have the NAACP's Legal Defense Fund over the voting rights for post-election actions. So you can't contest anything, I guess, if something in your eyes seems funny. Then you have the New York Attorney General's civil and criminal investigations. There's tons of that. Then you have the Scotland Unexplained Wealth Orders lawsuit. Then you have the Trump Tower assault suit. Then Michael Cohen is suing him for retaliatory imprisonment. You have the criminal investigation into Trump's finances. There's a whole bunch of updates on that, Glenn Beck said. And then you have the incitement criminal investigation. You have the Fulton County, Georgia criminal election influence investigation. You have the Westchester, New York criminal investigation of the Trump Organization golf course. You have the National Archives investigation that he mishandled classified material. And Beck says he don't think he has all of them. This is only some of the suits. And he says, I don't know of anyone who has ever had this kind of coordinated attack against them. If you don't think a lot of these are funded by, the left and Soros and those kinds of people, you're fooling yourself. They're doing everything they can just to get this guy to give up. This is what it means to stand against the machine. He says, I don't know what Donald Trump would do with the second term, but I know they don't want him to have one. I know for sure he knows who they are. And I can't imagine anyone more motivated to bust this machine up than him. What is it about him that they despise? And don't tell me it's because he's just rude. Really? Is that it? Beck said. Wait a minute. Let me see. You guys are hanging out with hookers and criminals, Chinese Communist Party, and you don't like him because he's rude. Don't think so. The rule of law is an absolute joke in America. And I want to show you, have you seen anyone who has come under this kind of persecution, even after he leaves office? And trust me, if he would have won a second term, and Beck says, which I think he did, but I don't know. If he won a second term, they wouldn't be doing all these lawsuits at the end of that. This is not some moral outrage. This is just to stop him. He said he talked to some sources in New York last night, and it came out early this morning or late last night that his attorney was kept 10 feet away from the warrant when they flashed the warrant for the Mar-a-Lago raid, and said, here's the warrant. Let me see it. No. After they held the warrant 10 feet away, she was not allowed to grab the warrant and read the warrant. That is against the law. That's against the law. Then after they left, they handed her the warrant. Now, she didn't get the attachments, and I think that is legal. You don't necessarily get the affidavits attached to it right away, but you do eventually see that. They now have that, but she wasn't allowed to see it, nor was his attorney allowed to go into Mar-a-Lago when they went in. They went into his bedroom, spent an enormous amount of time in Melania's closet. They broke into his safe in his office. And Beck says that warrant better damn well say they can break into that safe. Because the law is you can't go into somebody's house and search and just tear it all apart. You have to have a pretty good idea of where things might be located. You ask for permission for those areas, and you have to know exactly what you're looking for. And if it's in a safe, you need to specifically say it's in a safe and we're having a safe cracker come in. If they didn't say it in the warrant that they could crack a safe, it's the fruit of the poison tree, by the way. There was nothing in the safe. What they broke into was a safe room that he had shown the National Archive investigators as they were talking about, the archives that they said should be in the National Archives, and he said it should be at home. We're working it out between our attorneys. They said, fine. You just have to have this locked in a room. So he made a safe room and put 2 locks on it at their request. That's what they broke into. So they were negotiating all this stuff, you see. And they, at least while they worked it out and wanted it locked up. So he had a safe room built at their request. But instead of working it out, they went ahead and did all this. This doesn't sound good for the FBI, and I think that is why Merrick Garland is now suddenly like, I didn't know about it. I had no idea this was Christopher Wray. You didn't know about it. You should be fired by the president if your staff underneath you just says, you know what? I'm going in the house of a former president and do a search before we issue a subpoena. That's insanity. And that's the end of that article. So after reading that, I tend to think, because that was all these lawsuits and all this stuff is so excessive, and some of them I never even heard of, so it really has no effect if it's a public play. So evidently, he's not part of their show. He's not part of what we've been seeing since he left office. Now, that's not to say he couldn't end up being the wounded head. That was one of the 7, and it's now the 8th. But that's for a later discussion. In other news, the Florida judge who approved the FBI warrant for the raid on Mar-a-Lago was assigned to Trump lawsuit against Clinton's. The judge also represented Epstein employees in sex trafficking case. Magistrate Judge Bruce Reinhart, the Florida judge who approved the warrant for the FBI raid of former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate, was formally assigned to oversee the lawsuit which Trump sued Hillary Clinton. He had also previously represented former convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's employees in a sex trafficking case. Where Trump is suing the Democratic National Committee, Perkins Coie, LLC, Michael Sussman, Mark Elias, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Charles Halliday Dolan Jr., Jake Sullivan, John Podesta, Fusion GPS, Nellie Orr, Bruce Orr, Christopher Steele, Igor Danchenko, James Comey, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, Andrew McCabe, and many others. The lawsuit alleges that Clinton and her cohorts maliciously conspired to weave a false narrative that their Republican opponent, Trump, was colluding with a hostile foreign sovereignty. The scheme included falsifying evidence, deceiving law enforcement, and exploiting access to highly sensitive data sources, and was conceived, coordinated, and carried out by top-level officials at the Clinton campaign and the DNC. Reinhart goes on to say, he eventually recused himself. It says here that after he recused himself, less than 2 months later, on Monday, August 9th, he signed that warrant for the FBI to raid Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate over an alleged dispute over White House documents. So they raid can you imagine if Trump was president and Bill Barr, and I guess it would still be Christopher Wray, who's just Comey 2.0. Can you imagine if they had raided former President Barack Hussein Obama's house? Can you imagine the outrage in the news media? Can you? But the media's just playing this down like nobody should be upset. Nobody's above the law and all this. When these aren't like documents that are going to, put Trump in jail. This is like, where should they be stored? The National Archives or where Trump's got them? The nature of them seems to be a discrepancy of where it should be. So they were working this out amongst their lawyers, and they decided to go in hardcore like this. So you got that. Let's go on. Records. Cheney's net worth ballooned as much as 600% while in office. Liz Cheney. Trump-backed challenger, huge lead over Liz before Tuesday election. And now they're pumping in money from outside the state, New York, and everything to try to keep her from losing. And check this out. Poll. Democrats inch ahead of Republicans on generic congressional ballot. Really? How could that possibly be true? How? With what's going on with supplies, with prices, with gas, with all the money we're throwing over there in Europe, with the threat of something else happening in Taiwan. I mean, the way everything is just sunk like a rock to the bottom of a pond, somehow the Democrats have inched ahead of the Republicans? Wow. I don't think I believe that. Something sounds fishy there. Food prices soar most since 1974. Christopher Wray still mum on Mar-a-Lago raid except to condemn alleged threats against the FBI. Condemn alleged threats against the FBI. Let's see. Once upon a time, few ragtag people got together and fought against the British Empire for their independence, liberty, to be sovereign, excessively being taxed without any representation, under constant, thumb pressure and rules from the British government. We fought against that. And the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all that stuff, we wanted to make sure that if our own government became that way, we have recourse. So we got all these federal agencies out of control, just being used as a weapon by this one-party system. And I say one-party system because I believe that's what we've got now. Except for a few outliers, I think we've become a one-party system. And it don't matter who's in there. They're all of the same ilk, the same mindset. World Economic Forum type things. I mean, you even got people that graduated from that World Economic Forum training and stuff, like, even on the news, like, I never would have thought Maria Bartiromo would be one of them, but she is. There's a lot of them. Both sides. And so, yeah, we got one party here. Let's see. Lisa Murkowski runs away from reporters' questions about the change in Alaska election law. See, I really don't think anything's going to change. I think the same old tricks are going to be pulled coming up here in this next one. And if they're not, I still bet they get a bunch of other people in that we think's on our side. But in 2024, I mean, people talk about just got to show up. You got to vote. You got to vote, which I agree. You got to vote. You got to do what you can, right? But if they're controlling the outcome, or somebody else, or foreign hackers, but they're all in together on all this. You all know that. And if y'all think there's going to be a different outcome, I think you're sadly mistaken. They've got everything nailed down, I think. But maybe not quite. Maybe not quite. Maybe that's why they're doing all this. Maybe if enough of a swell happens at the ballot boxes, maybe at some point it will become too obvious for them to pull. I think it was too obvious last time, but it could be even more so this time. I don't know. Deep state infighting. DOJ fingers FBI for Mar-a-Lago raid disaster. AG Garland not asked to approve raid. Grassley says, I didn't get much of an answer at all from FBI Director Wray on Mar-a-Lago raid. And the raid took place just days after historians warned Biden of another civil war. Where's this guy at? Oh, here he is. The WEF advisor, Yuval Harari. He said things like this before, but here he is quoting. We just don't need the vast majority of the population in today's world. You know, we talk about depopulation and you wonder why. We got freaks like this guy out here saying things like that. Not to mention, we've got the Bible. It talks of thirds and fourths and everything of people perishing in Revelation. The IRS job listing. Now, I don't know if you heard of this, but the IRS has been, they hired like 87,000 employees. It's like more, about close to the number of the National Guard we have. But the IRS job listing says special agents must carry a firearm and be willing to use deadly force. So you ain't going to go to jail for tax evasion. They're going to shoot you. They're going to come to your house and kill you, is what it sounds like. I mean, I don't get this. Somebody said just pay your taxes fairly and you'll be okay. Well, what if you make a mistake? You got IRS agents now? I mean, do you guys see what's happened to the country? I mean, do you really hold out any hope for the country? Your hope better be in Jesus Christ. Because this thing's about over, man. You better give your life to Jesus Christ. Ask him to forgive you of your sins. Admit that you know that he's the Son of God. Come down to earth, born of a virgin. Lived a sinless life. Laid down his life and bled on the cross to pay for our sins, past, present, and future. Died. Buried. Rose again 3 days later. And is now ascended back to the Father. And he's coming back, guys. Everything's playing out. There's no way you should have any doubts. If any of y'all haven't read the Bible and studied it, maybe that's why you don't believe in Jesus. Because if you read it, especially right now in today's time, you would see everything the Bible predicted would happen in the end times is happening. I mean, technology has advanced so much that it has to happen soon because they're going to change us all if they get their way. God won't allow that. So before technology advances any further or too much further, Jesus has to come back. And he is coming back. Let's see what else we got. Oh, Scarborough, the so-called Republican. He says, freak Newt Gingrich is taking cheap shots at the FBI. Well, I wonder why. I wonder why. Corporate media tar critics of FBI's Trump raid as QAnon fans calling for violence. 600 American workers to be laid off. Biden boasts zero inflation, but food and rent soar. Biden declares mission accomplished on inflation. And a Biden advisor, Sperling, on blame for households lacking savings. He says lots of people didn't have savings before the pandemic. Oh, man. High inflation hits Disney, with prices soaring nearly 40%. Hulu also sees steep price hike. Producer prices up 9.8% as inflation eases slightly. Capitalism! Exclamation mark. German supermarket selling communist-themed food sparked both anger and appetite. Germany to introduce China-style color-coded vax status app. Tulsi Gabbard, another graduate from the World Economic Forum, by the way. But she does say this, probably part of the play. One of the great actors that should be in Hollywood, maybe. Every American should be extremely concerned about Mar-a-Lago raid. And here's what I was talking about earlier. Outside state money floods Wyoming to save Liz Cheney from defeat Tuesday. Mysterious cash floods upstate New York GOP primary as establishment races to stop Carl Palladino. And what else we got? Let's see. That might be about all I should go over. I've been going on a while here. Yeah. That's all I'll do for now, guys. But it's kind of a little wrap up of just the craziness going on around the world, in this country. The ridiculous excuses for things. The lawlessness. This justice system that we have that is completely broken down and has been politicized. And them are my views on it. So I love you guys, and I will talk to y'all soon. Goodbye.